The strange cry in the scrapyard. The wind was cold that night. It moved through the broken walls of the scrapyard like a ghost. Old metal pieces clanged together. Wires hung loose from broken machines. This was not a place where anyone wanted to be after dark, but Jorah was there. He was always there. Jorah was a quiet man. He worked alone, fixing old machines and selling parts to travelers. His hands were rough, his face covered in dust, and his heart tired. He had no family, no friends, just rusted metal and silence, until he heard it. A cry. Faint. Small. Like a baby bird calling for its mother. Jorah stopped moving. He was standing near a tall pile of broken ship parts. He turned off his flashlight and listened again. The cry came again. This time, a little louder, not mechanical, not animal. It was alive. Jorah slowly climbed over the metal pile, careful not to make noise. His boots slipped on oil. His heart beat faster. He reached the top, looked down, and saw something that made him freeze. Under a dirty blanket, two small figures were curled up together. One of them looked up at him. It had large, glowing eyes, purple skin, thin arms holding the other tightly. It wasn't human. Jorah almost stepped back, but something in his chest stopped him. The small creature blinked, scared. The other one, even smaller, was not moving. "Hey," Jorah whispered softly. "I won't hurt you." No answer. Just wide, frightened eyes. He moved closer and gently pulled the blanket back. They were both children. Alien twins. Their clothes were torn, their bodies dirty and cold. One of them had strange glowing lines on the arms like old symbols. The other was shaking, but breathing. They looked like they hadn't eaten in days. Jorah looked around. Who had left them here? Why? This place was full of poison smoke and sharp metal. No child could survive here alone. His throat tightened. "I'm taking you out of here," he said, more to himself than to them. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around both of them. One tried to move away, weak and scared, but Jorah gently picked them up. They were lighter than he expected. "You're safe now," he whispered. He carried them to a small workshop at the edge of the yard. It was warm inside, with a heater made from old ship engines. He laid them on a mattress and covered them with a blanket. They didn't speak, just looked at him, eyes full of fear and sadness. Jorah gave them water. Then he heated some soup. The older twin, maybe 6 years old, helped the younger drink. She didn't touch her own bowl until her brother had eaten. That touched Jorah more than he could explain. They still hadn't said a word. He pointed to himself. "Jorah," he said, slowly tapping his chest. The girl blinked. "Joe? Ra?" she said softly. He smiled. "Yes." She looked down at her brother, touched his face, and whispered the word again. He smiled a little. It was the first sign of life from him. Jorah cleaned their wounds. He wrapped their small hands in cloth and gently washed the dirt from their faces. The glowing marks didn't come off. They looked like something ancient, something powerful. He didn't ask questions yet. They needed rest. As night turned into early morning, both twins were asleep. Jorah sat in his chair, watching them. So small, so strange. And yet, they reminded him of something he had forgotten long ago. Hope. But deep in the back of his mind, a voice whispered something darker. Who were they? Why were they here? And who would come looking for them, learning to smile again? Morning light pushed through the dirty windows of Jorah's workshop. The sky above was a dull gray, the kind that promised another quiet day on the edge of nowhere. Inside, everything was still, except for two small figures under a thick blanket. The twins were awake. Sari, the older one, sat up first. Her violet eyes scanned the room, wide with fear, but also curiosity. She looked at the metal walls, the piles of wires, the old machines humming softly. Her little brother Tovin slept beside her, curled up like a kitten. His breathing was soft, but his fingers gripped the edge of the blanket tightly. Jorah stood at the corner holding two small bowls. Breakfast, he said gently. Sari flinched. Jorah didn't move closer. He placed the bowls on the floor and stepped back. It's warm, not poisoned, just food. She didn't understand all the words, but the tone in his voice calmed her. Slowly, very slowly, she reached out. She picked up the bowl and smelled it. Then, she let out a tiny sound, something between a hum and a sigh, and took her first bite. A minute later, Tovin stirred. Sari leaned over and touched his cheek. He blinked, then sat up quickly, scared. But when he saw the food, his tiny hands grabbed the spoon. They both ate in silence, fast but careful, like the food might vanish. Jorah watched them quietly. After they finished, Sari placed both bowls down neatly. She looked at Jorah, then touched her chest. "Sorry," she said. It was the first clear word she had spoken. Jorah's eyes widened. He pointed gently to her. "Sorry?" She nodded, then pointed to her brother. "Tovin." Tovin looked up, smiled, shyly, then looked down again. Jorah smiled. "Thank you, Sari. Thank you, Tovin." They didn't reply, but something small changed in their eyes. Less fear, more light. Days passed. The twins stayed hidden inside the workshop. Jorah built a small room for them using metal sheets and old blankets. He found soft clothes, cleaned them, and gave the twins a space of their own. Sari began to speak more. Her voice was soft but clear. She repeated every word Jorah said, learning quickly. Tovin, on the other hand, didn't speak much, but he watched everything. When Jorah fixed a machine, Tovin sat beside him and copied every movement with his small fingers. One day, the lights in Jorah's room stopped working. He sighed and picked up his toolbox. But before he could move, Tovin walked to the wall, placed both hands on the wires, and the lights blinked back on. Jorah stared. "How did you—" Tovin looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly. Then he smiled. It was the first time Jorah saw his teeth. Small, sharp, and perfect. "You fixed it?" Jorah whispered. Tovin nodded. After that, strange things began to happen. The old machine that had been dead for years suddenly started working when Sari sat beside it. A broken radio started playing music when Tovin touched its side. The workshop, once filled with dead things, was now full of life. But it wasn't just the machines that were changing. The twins were changing too. They laughed now. Sari found an old scarf and wrapped it around her head like a crown. She danced across the room, pretending to be someone important. Tovin clapped and followed her, copying her moves. Jorah watched them from a distance, his heart both heavy and full. He knew this couldn't last forever. Someone had abandoned them, and someone might come looking. That evening, as the stars appeared above, Sari climbed into Jorah's lap. She looked up at him and asked, "Why?" He blinked. "Why, what?" She pointed at herself, then at Tovin, then back at him. "Why help?" Jorah looked at the fire for a long time before answering. "Because you were cold, and scared, and alone. And because I was too." Sari rested her head on his chest. Outside, the scrapyard was silent. But inside, for the first time in many years, Jorah's home felt alive again. The bounty on their heads. 3 weeks passed since Jorah found the twins. The scrapyard had changed, not just with light and laughter, but with tension too. Jorah kept the doors locked, the windows covered. He didn't let the twins outside during daylight. He made sure the workshop's old scanner remained off. He didn't want anyone knowing what lived inside now. But secrets, like smoke, always found a way out. One gray afternoon, Jorah heard it again. A ship. Low and heavy. The sound buzzed through the clouds above the scrapyard. Not a trader ship, not a courier. This one was too silent, too slow, and it didn't pass by. It hovered. Sari and Tovin were inside, sitting near the heating unit. They were playing with glowing pieces from an old repair kit, giggling softly as colors danced between their fingers. "Stay. Here," Jorah said gently but firmly. He stepped outside and looked up. There it was, a black ship with no markings, not even a light. It dropped quietly behind the far pile of scrap away from the main road. Then it powered down. Jorah's heart thumped hard in his chest. Not good, he whispered. He went back inside, grabbed a small energy blaster, and locked the door. Night fell faster than usual. By evening, the scrapyard was covered in shadows, and then came the voices. At first, soft. This the place? Scanner picked up a heat signature. Too small for adult engines, probably kids. The twins? Could be. Jorah's blood turned cold. Outside, footsteps crunched over gravel and glass. 3 figures appeared through the cracks in the wall, tall, armored, no uniforms, but clearly trained. Mercenaries, bounty hunters. Keep the area tight, one said, holding a scanner. Signals coming from the workshop. Inside, Jorah looked at Sari and Tovin. They were holding hands. Listen, to me, he said, kneeling down. No matter what happens, stay quiet. Stay low, do not come out. Sari nodded. Jorah stepped outside, blaster in hand. What do you want? He asked loudly. The hunters turned toward him. One of them smiled. A woman with half her face made of steel. Just looking for some property, she said calmly. Heard you might be hiding something valuable. No property here, Jorah said. Just rust and regret. Cute, the other laughed. The one with the scanner stepped forward. We're tracking Royal. Signals. 2 of them. The kind that shouldn't be in a dump like this. Jorah stayed still. The woman's smile faded. Step aside, or we'll burn this place down. For a second, Jorah thought of lying, of denying everything. But he saw Sari's face in his mind. How she smiled when she first tasted soup. How Tovin had fixed the lights with a touch. No, they weren't things. They were children. He raised his blaster. Then you'll have to burn me first. The hunter fired. A bolt of red light slammed into Jorah's shoulder. He hit the ground hard, pain screaming through his body. Inside, Sari cried out. No, Jorah shouted. Stay back, but it was too late. The door burst open. The hunters stormed in. They stopped. Sari stood in the middle of the room, her hands glowing, her eyes burning bright like stars. Tovin stood beside her, silent, calm. The air around him began to hum. The hunters raised their weapons, and then the twins screamed, not loud, not angry, but deep, the kind of scream that moved through bone and metal, the kind that made machines tremble and lights shatter. Jorah watched from the floor, in shock. Energy burst from the children's bodies like a wave. The walls shook. The roof cracked. The hunters were thrown back like toys, hitting the scrap piles outside with loud crashes. Silence. For a long moment, everything was still. Then Tovin walked over to Jorah, placed a tiny glowing hand on his wound. The pain faded. Jorah gasped. How? Sari knelt beside him. They hurt you, she said quietly. I'm okay now, he whispered, holding her hand. Outside, the hunters groaned. They weren't dead, but they wouldn't be walking soon. Jorah stood up slowly. They were tracking you. Sari nodded. They always come, always find us. But why? Jorah asked. Who are you? Sari looked down. We're not just lost. We're stolen. Escape from Sector 9 night returned, darker than usual. The scrapyard was silent except for the distant hum of the black ship, still resting behind the metal hills. Sparks flickered in the air from broken lights. The bounty hunters lay unconscious, near the trash piles, breathing but broken. Inside the workshop, Jorah packed fast. He moved with one arm, the other still weak from the wound. Sari helped him quietly. She carried a small bag Jorah gave her, some food, old tools, extra clothes. Tovin sat near the heater, his glowing fingers dancing over a cracked map screen. Sector 9 routes are watched, he said softly. Jorah looked over, surprised. You're reading that? Tovin nodded. Some words, I remember, Sari added. He sees symbols, he always did, even before the palace burned. Jorah froze. Palace? Sari didn't look up. Our home, we had many rooms. Gold walls, people bowed. Then one night, fire, shouts, and Mother said run. The room grew quiet. Outside, wind howled. Jorah stood still. Pieces were falling into place. The twins weren't just special, they were royal, and someone had tried to erase them. Jorah leaned in. We're leaving. Tonight. I have a contact. Someone who owes me a favor. Sari tilted her head. Friend? Not exactly. But he hates the kind of people who just tried to take you. An hour later, the old cargo hauler lifted off from behind the scrapyard. It groaned like a dying beast, coughing smoke from its rusted engines, but it still flew. Jorah sat in the pilot's seat, sweat on his forehead, hand gripping the controls. Sari and Tovin sat in the back, strapped in with old belts. Hold on, he said. The ship pushed into the clouds, leaving the scrapyard behind like a bad memory. 2 ships followed. They rose silently from the far hills, black and sharp, like knives in the sky. They were watching, waiting. But Jorah had expected this. He didn't fly straight. He weaved through abandoned zones, old warfields, and narrow canyons filled with metal bones. Lightning sparked from old defense grids still half alive. One wrong move and the ship would fry. You trust this path? Sari asked, gripping the seat. No, Jorah answered. But it's better than waiting to die. Tovin stared ahead. They will find us again. Maybe, Jorah said, teeth clenched. But we'll make them bleed for it. Suddenly the ship shook. The scanner beeped fast. They're locking weapons, Jorah muttered. Hold on. This is going to be stupid. He pulled the ship into a steep dive, Sari screamed. Tovin stayed silent, but his hands gripped the seat until it cracked. The hauler flew under a dead space station's ring, scraping metal. Sparks burst behind them. One of the black ships clipped the edge and spun out. One down, Jorah grinned. But the second was faster. It fired. The blast hit the back engine. Warning lights flashed red. Fire burst from the rear. We're losing altitude, Jorah shouted. Crash? Sari asked, eyes wide. No, he said. We land, hard. The hauler slammed into the surface of an old mining moon, skidding across dust, metal, and frozen ground. When it stopped, the silence felt louder than the crash. Jorah coughed, blood in his mouth. Everyone alive? Yes, Sari whispered. Tovin, Jorah turned. The boy was already up. We have to move. They stepped outside. The mining moon was dead. No life, no cities. Just a ghost world filled with collapsed tunnels and broken towers. But someone waited there. A figure stepped from behind a rusted pillar, tall, with one cybernetic eye and a thick gray coat. Jorah, the man said, smiling, slowly. You always show up in style? Grim, Jorah nodded. Still breathing? Barely. They shook hands quickly. These are the kids? Grim asked, eyes scanning Sari and Tovin. They're not kids, Jorah said. They're royal heirs, and everyone wants them gone. Grim looked at the twins again. Yeah, I see it now. Old blood. Dangerous blood. He turned. Come, we don't have much time. They'll follow your trail. They entered a tunnel. Inside was a hidden transport. Small, but fast. Grim handed Jorah a new route map. This takes you to the outer rim. No scanners, no patrols. But once you cross, there's no turning back. Jorah looked at Sari and Tovin. They looked back, calm, ready. We never planned to go back, Jorah said. The ship roared to life. As it rose, Grim shouted, one last thing. You're protecting more than 2 kids, Jorah. You're carrying a crown that could burn or save the stars. The truth in the blood. The stars outside the window moved slowly as the ship floated through deep space. It was silent inside. Jorah leaned back in the pilot seat, his arm wrapped in a clean bandage, his eyes heavy but alert. Behind him, Sari sat near the corner, drawing shapes on the floor with her finger. Tovin lay on his side, eyes open but quiet. His hands glowed faintly in the dark. They had escaped. For now. But Jorah knew escape was only the beginning. He stared at the navigation chart Grim had given him. The path led to a small, forgotten moon, codename Ilaris 7. There was nothing special about it. No cities, no armies. Just rock, dust, and an ancient archive hidden underground. A place only rebels and broken historians visited. A place that could tell the truth. They landed silently. The moon was cold, its sky painted with green mist and glowing cracks in the stone. Jorah led the twins down a winding tunnel lit by blue lights. They reached a steel door half buried in sand. Jorah knocked once, then twice, then pressed a code into the rusted pad. The door hissed open. Inside, a single old man stood waiting, thin, tall, with long silver hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. "You brought them," the man said, stepping forward. "You know who they are?" Jorah asked. "I do. The galaxy forgets, but I remember every royal bloodline." He knelt down and looked at the children. "Sorry. Tovin, daughter and son of Queen Risha of the Karyos throne." The twins said nothing. The old man smiled gently. "You don't remember her clearly, do you?" Sari blinked. "Only dreams. Her voice, her crown." Tovin whispered. "The fire, her scream. Then we ran." "Yes," the old man said softly, "because someone betrayed her. Someone who feared her bloodline would bring peace instead of power." He led them inside. Machines blinked to life. A tall glass pod opened, revealing a scanner bed. "Their blood carries the truth," the man said to Jorah. "Memories, codes, and rights written deep inside. We just need to unlock it." Jorah looked uneasy. "Is it safe?" "Safer than what's out there." Sari went first. She lay inside the scanner. Lights passed over her skin. Strange symbols lit up on her arms and chest. Marks only royal children bore. Ancient scripts of inheritance. Then Tovin. His blood reacted faster. The machine beeped wildly, lights flashing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The old man's eyes widened. "What is it?" Jorah asked. "It's more than I thought," he whispered. "They're not just heirs. They are twins born under the blood star, a rare sign in the old records." "What does that mean?" "They are not only heirs, they are the chosen ones. Rulers destined to unite the scattered systems of the Outer Ring, or destroy them, if used by the wrong hands." Jorah's throat tightened. "So the bounty hunters, the black ships, they don't just want to kill them?" "No," the man said, eyes dark. "They want to control them. Use them as puppets, parade them as royals to command armies and crush rebellions. The Empire sees them as keys, not children." Sari stepped down from the scanner. "I don't want to be a key," she said quietly. The old man smiled at her. "Then be the door." Later, Jorah stood outside the archive staring up at the sky. He heard footsteps behind him. Tovin. The boy stood beside him, silent. Then he asked, "Will we be safe now?" Jorah looked down, choosing his words. "Safe? Maybe not. But together? Yes. And that means we stand a chance." Tovin nodded. "I remember my mother's face," he said suddenly. "She had eyes like Sari's, and she said, 'You are more than what you were born to be.'" "What does that mean?" "It means," Jorah said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, "you get to choose your future, not the Empire, not anyone else." That night, the old man gave them a box. It was small, metal, and covered in dust. "What's this?" Jorah asked. "The royal seal. Only true blood can open it." Sari touched it. The box clicked open. Inside was a crystal disc, glowing blue. The man whispered, "This is the true record of your birth, your parents, the betrayal, and the Empire's lie." Sari held it tight. "Then we show the stars. Return to the lost throne." The stars above the moon shifted slowly as the hidden ship powered up. Inside the cockpit, Jorah sat at the controls, checking fuel levels and hull strength. Sari and Tovin sat behind him, the royal seal locked safely, inside a metal case between them. The truth of their blood was no longer a secret, and now they were no longer running. They were going back. Back to the heart of the Empire. Back to the broken palace of Karios. "They'll try to kill us," Jorah said, not hiding the truth. "They already tried," Sari replied. "But this time we won't hide." Tovin stared at the case. "Will they believe us?" Jorah turned to face them. "Not everyone. Some will try to stop you. But others, they've been waiting." The ship cut through deep space, passing old ruins and silent war zones. Jorah avoided patrols and took back channels known only to smugglers and ghosts. It took 4 days to reach the outer edges of planet Karios. Sari leaned against the window, staring down at the green and gold world below. "I remember the towers," she said softly. "The light would hit them just right in the morning, and it looked like fire." Tovin's voice was almost a whisper. "I remember the garden. Mother planted a tree for each of us." Jorah tightened his grip on the controls. "The towers are broken now. The garden was burned. Then we'll plant it again," Sari said. They landed in the ruins of a small city just outside the capital. Rebels had been spotted here according to the old man's map. Jorah left the ship cloaked, then led the twins through broken streets, old statues and walls covered in faded banners. Signs of war were everywhere, but so was silence, too much silence. Then, from the shadows, a voice whispered, "Stop right there." 5 figures stepped out, all dressed in ragged cloaks and old military gear. Weapons were drawn, faces hidden. "Who are you?" the leader asked, his voice rough and tired. "My name is Jorah. These children are Sari and Tovin, heirs of Risha." The man laughed bitterly. "You think that name still matters?" Sari stepped forward and opened the metal case. The crystal disc glowed. The seal pulsed. Everyone froze. That's not possible," one of the rebels whispered. "It is," Jorah said. "And you know what it means." The leader lowered his weapon. "We need to move, now, before they spot us." The rebels led them underground to a hidden base below the old capital. Broken statues of the royal family still stood down there, untouched by fire. When Sari and Tovin entered, the lights above flickered. The air changed. Someone whispered, "They returned." News spread fast. Soon dozens of people gathered inside the base. Old soldiers, doctors, elders. They stood in silence, watching the twins. Then an old woman stepped forward. Her hand shook as she reached for Sari's face. "I served your mother," she whispered, tears falling. "She was fire and kindness, and she loved you more than her own breath." Sari touched the woman's hand. "We remember her voice." The woman knelt. "Then the throne remembers you." That night, plans were made. The royal tower still stood in the center of the capital, ruins guarded by imperial forces. No one had entered it in 10 years, but the throne still sat inside, and only true blood could activate it. "If they see you walk through the gates," the rebel leader said, "they'll panic." "Good," Jorah replied. They marched at dawn. Sari and Tovin wore black cloaks. Jorah walked beside them, weapon on his back. The rebels followed behind, silent but ready. As they stepped into the capital square, alarms rang. Drones flew overhead. Imperial soldiers poured out of the walls. Guns raised. "Stop!" one shouted. "Drop your weapons!" Sari removed her hood. Gasps spread through the crowd. "Stand down," Jorah said, "or face the truth." Soldiers hesitated. Sari walked to the center of the square. Her steps were slow but steady. She stopped at the base of the tower. The old throne, shattered and dark, stood high above, empty. She turned to the soldiers. "You burned our name. You hunted our blood. But we are still here." No one moved. Tovin stepped beside her, holding the crystal disc. He placed it into the throne's base. Nothing happened. At first, then, light. Pure, golden light spread across the ground. The walls, the broken sky above, symbols lit up, old banners, unfolded from inside the tower. The throne rose and it spoke in an ancient voice. Blood of Risha confirmed, heirs returned, throne reborn. The soldiers dropped their weapons, people dropped to their knees. The square echoed with a single word repeated over and over, heirs, heirs, heirs. In that moment, the empire cracked. The twins stood together, holding hands, as the galaxy watched a forgotten throne come alive. But power never comes without danger. And in the shadows, someone watched, someone who still wanted them gone. Rise of the twin heirs. The Tower of Karios shined again for the first time in 10 years, but it was not the same. The old flags no longer stood for power. The broken floor was now filled with footsteps of the forgotten, and at the center, on the newly awakened throne, stood 2 children, Sari and Tovin, small, quiet, but unshaken. They had no army, no crown, just truth. And the truth was changing. Everything across the system, hidden channels spread the news. The heirs are alive. The throne has chosen. The blood of Queen Risha has returned. In small villages, people wept. In rebel camps, commanders stood and saluted the sky. And in the cold chambers of the Imperial Council, powerful men and women cursed and screamed. One of them slammed his fist on the table. "We should have burned them when we had the chance." "We did," another replied, voice shaking. "They survived." "What now?" "We stopped pretending." The first strike came before sunrise. A black fleet moved in fast, cutting through clouds like knives. No warning, no words. Heavy walkers dropped into the city square. Armored soldiers marched with silent precision. The people of Karios didn't run. They formed a wall. Rebels, elders, broken citizens. Even children stood in front of the tower, hand in hand. At the top of the tower, Jorah watched them all. He gripped his old blaster and whispered, "You've come too far to fall now." Behind him, Sari placed her hand on Tovin's shoulder. His fingers glowed again, but he looked uncertain. "I'm scared," he said. "So am I," Sari whispered. "But being brave means doing it anyway." The first warning shot hit the sky, lighting it red, but no one moved. A soldier shouted, "Move aside." An old woman shouted back, "We've already died once under your rule, not again." A second shot rang out. Dust flew. Rubble shook. Sari closed her eyes, then stepped forward. "Enough," she said, her voice louder than before. "You don't need to kneel, you don't need to bleed, not for me, not for the throne, but if you want to live free, stand." The crowd cheered, but the soldiers didn't stop. They aimed again. Then something strange happened. The throne pulsed. A wave of light burst from its base, moving like wind. It passed through Sari and Tovin. Their eyes glowed. Their skin shimmered. With the ancient symbols, the energy hit the soldiers and their weapons turned to ash. One by one, they fell to their knees, not in pain, but in awe. The fleet above lost control. Ships stopped responding. Engines died mid-air. The Empire's power flickered like a dying flame. From behind the crowd, a new voice rose. "You don't know what you've awakened." Everyone turned. A tall man in silver armor stepped forward. His face was smooth, his eyes cold. "I was the one who burned your mother's throne," he said, "and I'll bury you in its ashes." He lifted a hidden blade, glowing dark blue. Tovin stood in front of Sari. "No," he said. "Not again." The man laughed. "You're just a child." Tovin raised his hand. "Yes, but I remember." The sky cracked. A giant beam of light struck down from above as if the stars themselves answered his voice. The man screamed as the light swallowed him. When it faded, he was gone. And the square was silent. Sari and Tovin walked to the center of the platform. Sari looked at the people. "We don't want to rule with fear. We want to rebuild what was lost, together." Tovin stepped forward. "No more kings. No more emperors. Just guardians." Jorah joined them. He stood at their side, his eyes wet with pride. They were thrown away like trash, he said, but they rose from dust and then gave us hope again. The months that followed brought change. Broken cities were rebuilt. Old enemies laid down weapons. Systems once ruled by fear began to speak of freedom. And through it all, the twin heirs never forgot the scrapyard, the hunger, the pain, and the man who gave them a second chance. In every new city, a statue was built, not of the twins, but of Jorah, standing with open arms, his back to the stars. Underneath it, a simple line was carved. He didn't see monsters. He saw children. The stars still held darkness, but now they also held light, and two small hands were reaching out to carry it forward, not as rulers, but as a promise.